Okay, we're fine, thank you.
Okay. Give me one more shot. Nope. Good evening, everybody. We're here to review the initial planning board review of the Perna's new house. And I'm Joanne Hanson, the chair of the planning board. I'm joined by Jay Reichgott, Portia Hinshaw, and it's under Janet Whitty, but it's Rich Whitty. Those are the members of the planning board. And then Kelly Naughton is our counsel, and Joe Zongel is our engineer. And so I think, and obviously John Ledwith, you've met, who's the village. And I'm trying to think of the comprehensive term, building inspector, and many other things. So I think it makes sense, Mr. Perna, if you and your architect could just walk us through the concept and the basic layout, and then we can get into the particulars of some of the engineering and infrastructure aspects. As you may know, the planning board reviews the infrastructure side of a new development, and then you will go before the Board of Architectural Review for design issues. In this case, I think that you're talking about putting in a septic system, and the road connection requires a stop with the village Board of Trustees. So that's kind of the layout of how the process works. And at any point, if you have questions about how the process is going, please do feel free to stop us and ask.
Okay, well, house is going to be two-story dwelling. It'll have basically two wings. The wings will be connected by another structure covering an indoor swimming pool. That area is approximately 900 square feet. The building itself, total height will be about 24.5 feet. We're planning on not putting any fossil fuel heating system. We're planning on putting a geothermal system. And we're also planning on trying to build the house to be net zero with the solar panels built onto the roof. The number of panels is still to be determined based on load, the electrical load that's going to be provided that the structure will require. We are planning to retain as many of those beautiful trees that we have on the property as possible, including perhaps allowing trees to exist fairly close to the building and taking the risk in the future that they may have to be taken down. But I don't want to remove any healthy trees whatsoever. As far as access to the property, we've really already determined that the best route would be from the cul-de-sac at the end of Lookout Stable Road. And there's a partially developed road already there that you might have characterized as a wood load from maybe 150 years ago or more. We're going to take advantage of that cut and continue to go up to the left to the actual site of the building. Let's see. In reference to the water connection is going to be made most likely at Lookout Mountain Road, taking advantage of gravity to feed the water supply of the house. The electrical connection will be made where the existing transformer box is on the ground at the end of Lookout Stable Road. Let's see, what else can I tell you? In reference to the septic system, septic design was designed prior And I've connected with the Department of Health and discussed the actual plan as it exists, and they say that there is no changes that are going to be required based on any change in their regulations. Let's see, what else can I tell you? Let's see.
So Jack, while
about
recollecting, maybe I can add to the site information as well.
Okay.
My name is Jamie Machado. I'm the architect for Jack Berner, who I'm doing currently. I'm helping orient the house in a certain direction for sun orientation, etc. And I just wanted to touch up on the driveway. As Mr. Perna mentioned, the road currently exists, and the site information that we've got or received was a combination of several surveys over time, and John and I have discovered that the location of the driveway had to move a little bit, slightly to the northwest direction, and that's solely because we needed a 10-foot clearance between the edge of the road and the property line. That's just a code that you guys have in Tuxedo. And with that in mind, the road, I believe, shifted to the northwest to accommodate that code. At the time, in the beginning, I don't think the code was in effect, and John could correct me if I'm wrong. The road does have a width of 12 feet, and at a small area where it turns, we widen it up a little to a little bit less than 14 feet. So we're within the code of that. And the building's elevation is set at 755 feet, which is basically in the center of the lower portion of the property. And this is the area where it's a little bit more flat. As everyone may know, this has a variety of slopes. Some areas are super steep and others are relatively flat, so we found a good space for the building to exist. As Mr. Perno mentioned, we're trying to avoid taking down any trees. The only trees that are being affected is where the building is at and the immediate surrounding area, but basically leaving all the trees in place. And we removed what we could tell is about 4 trees where the septic area is being placed, which is also a nice flat area, and it's located, as you can see on the site plan, on the north or the southmost portion near the cul-de-sac. That is it for now. So, Mr. Perno, did you want to continue?
Well, I would entertain any questions at this point.
Okay.
I was going to ask 2 questions and then turn it over to the other planning board members. Have you done on that, the septic field area, have you done any test work on that yet as to permeability? And
originally, there is evidence that a perk test, even a deep test, was done prior to the purchase. I do have some plans that were developed by Lankin Tully relating to the septic. I think you have those sheets, but we did find evidence of excavation to at least a depth of 3 feet. So I'm considering the geology and the makeup of the soil, it looks to me, having done this type of work before, not professionally, but in building other homes, it looks like it will perk to the requirements that the septic design will require.
I'm sorry, I'm a
But
little
yes, I can
confused.
add that. Oh, I'm sorry.
There's not, did a prior potential purchaser do work on this site, or there's no existing field there, right? Or,
No, there is no existing field.
okay,
There was a field planned to be built.
okay, so a prior potential purchaser did that work?
Right. I mean, there isn't any evidence of any prior construction or excavation other than that test hole. Actually, there were 2 test holes that we were able to locate, and that's about it. The rest of it is pristine, natural, and never been touched.
And can you just walk us through at the lower part of the property is relatively steep. Can you walk us through how much fill, the fill calculations for, I'm assuming fill is going to be necessary to establish the driveway? Or are you saying that the existing road is there and it really doesn't, with the necessary slope, it really doesn't need any fill?
Now, there will be fill, there will be cut and fill to be able to reach the home site. The slope will have to cut. We'll have to cut. However, the material that's going to be recovered from the cut is going to be used for the fill. So we're contemplating that there will be an excess amount of material that may have to be moved from the site. But at this point, it doesn't look like it's going to be a substantial amount. And we're not anticipating bringing in any fill from any other sources. If need be, during the process, if that becomes the case, we will certainly have any material tested to make sure that it's safe and does not contain any contaminants, toxins, pesticides, or any deleterious material.
So those are my 2 preliminary questions. Jay, do you want to ask yours? Because I'm sure you have many.
Or
I would just add that that is correct. If anything, we will not bring any additional material to the site. There's plenty there between the cut and fill that it can be spread for final. And it's all good material, so we can actually use that for lawn and landscaping. So we definitely don't need fill from the outside to come to the site. And I don't believe there's going to be any fill that has to be removed. We have a comfortable amount that we could use, and primarily it will be for landscaping and enhancements throughout the site.
Jay, you want to go ahead?
sure. Well, sticking with fill, it was 3rd on my list, but we'll start there. I looked at the fill, the sheet 2, which has the fill calculations on it, the cut and fill calculations.
Mhm.
And I was a little confused what units we're working in. The number that I'm seeing is plus 27,354. So I presume that is excess, right? So net cut,
Yeah.
as they say. Is that cubic feet, cubic yards?
Cubic feet, yes.
Okay. So about, okay, good, because then we're talking 1,000 yards. That's only what, like, 10 dump trucks. Okay.
Yes.
And you're talking about spreading that excess around for landscape modifications, but nothing on this plan that we've seen so far shows any site modifications outside of the pad for the house and the driveway.
That's correct. The driveway, if you go to that sheet, it's the first page.
Yeah.
As you notice the trees, there's a tree line with hatching.
Yeah,
Some areas is cut back, and the reason for that is that, let's take, for example, let's look at the curve of the driveway. As you
all
noticed.
right, wait 1 second. That,
Hold
Hold on. All right, so do we have any questions right now regarding this cut and fill analysis? Or we now know what measurement is there, correct? Joe?
that's good, but wait one, while we're on this page,
Sure.
sorry, let's put a pin in that and let's just talk about the code analysis. It's unclear. Are you requesting any variances at this point?
I don't believe we are.
Okay, I was confused about the yes column there. It doesn't look like it.
I'm
Just-
sorry, which column are you referring to? The yes?
So in the existing non-conforming, I'm assuming that what I mean, third column from the right.
What sheet is this on?
This
sorry.
is sheet 2. 002. It's got the cut and it's got the one with all the tables.
Oh, okay, got it.
All
He's
right, so
referring to the site plan table.
No, the table plan. Table
Okay.
sheet.
I got it.
yes.
Mhm.
So is it, the hill's got a pretty good slope. Are you gonna have, you have any issues meeting the pitch requirements for the driveway?
Currently, no. We have it at, let's say, it's 20% or less is the slope that we are requiring.
That's something, I mean,
And we're proposing less than, let's see, where is it? 11 degrees is what we're proposing. Oh, I see the yes.
I'm, John, help me out here. I thought the
looking- I thought it's
maximum
10.
driveway slope was 10%.
Yeah, this is not correct. The allowance under the code is 10% spot slope. He has 20. And he's indicating that it's 11 degrees. What's proposed?
Yes.
So-
So that would be would require a variance.
Right.
Yes,
Actually, it may be my misunderstanding because on the column it says existing non-conforming. And my answer is yes, because the existing was not conforming. So the new is. So overall, we don't need a variance because we're conforming. Before it was, because I thought this was referring to the existing non-conforming. And then, if you look at the 2 columns to the right of that, it says variance requested. We didn't put anything there, so I might have misunderstood that column where it says yes,
Okay,
because I'm looking at it as if you put it in the full sentence, is the existing non-conforming, and I felt that it was, because more than 60% of where the initial driveway was very steep. And so
Right.
we kind of leveled it out.
if I
So
may,
I
I think,
apologize for that.
officially there is no driveway there now. So it would have to comply with the 10% spot slope. So there's really nothing pre-existing. So
Okay.
if you're going to provide evidence to us that it's 10 degrees or less, that would be fine. But if it is in fact 11 degrees, it would require a variance.
Okay.
yeah, so if, I'm not throwing rocks, but if you can get that all figured out before the next time we see you guys, that would be useful.
Okay.
Okay, now on to what were we talking? Oh, we were talking about all right. Cut and fill, we got sorted out. I believe you. Did variances. We haven't seen, and part of our mandate, and I'm sure you haven't put it together yet, is the stormwater control plan. And all the usual stuff, swales, infiltration basins or detention basins or whatever you need to do. But one concern that I raise is at the end of the existing cul-de-sac, And John, maybe this would be a good time to get that drawing 001 up, if you would.
001.
Yep. Hopefully I remembered the right number.
Oh, I'll find it. No, not this one.
No,
John, I think we're looking for C001.
sorry, you're right. Thank you.
Oh, see, okay.
I mean, this isn't exactly a site plan either. This is kind of a cover sheet, but it's what we got.
What would you like to look at?
Well, at the sort of northeast edge of the existing pavement where the guardrail curves around,
Here, yeah.
right? The ground drops off very steeply in that area, hence the guardrail. If you squint and look at the existing contours, which are, I believe, are the light gray dashed lines, and for example, proposed driveway exposed aggregate label, the next one up is, no, the other up, is actually pointing to a existing contour line, if I'm reading this plan correctly. Yeah,
This one.
so if I follow that arrow, that dashed line there appears to be in these drawings what the existing contours are in places where things were changed. The reason that's all sort of pointing, in any event, more importantly, if you walk the site, there is the start of the draw that goes down the hill and eventually winds into a stream that runs down the Front Range somewhere in that area, and your driveway as proposed is crossing it, and that may effectively create an embankment that may mess with the drainage. So
Oh, I see.
I'm not
Okay,
throwing
so
I'm not throwing rocks, and we haven't seen the drainage plan yet, but keep that in mind as you're working out your plan.
if I may, I'm just trying to locate, I don't have the luxury of looking at the Zoom meeting. So
Okay,
I'm just looking, I'm referring to my drawings as a PDF on my screen. So from the cul-de-sac, the driveway, as it goes up, I have an indication of 12 feet. There's two dimensions, 12 feet, and then to the right, it says 10 feet to the
Yes.
property line. Are you referring to the arrow right above that that's touching a light gray small dash line?
exactly.
Is that the, okay, so that's the area where the water crosses, you said?
Well, it appears that sort of, let's put it this way, if I was making an initial plan of where there might need to be a culvert, your dimension lines, the 12 and 10 dimension lines, look like the center line of a culvert to me.
You know, Jay, I looked
Okay.
at that spot when I bought the property, and I've been there many, many times since last May when I bought it. And I'm
Mhm.
constantly looking to see if there's any water accumulating anywhere. And that would be the obvious place for water to accumulate. And I've never seen any,
Okay.
but it does look like that was probably naturally produced by water erosion at some
Mhm.
point in geological history there. But there's no evidence that I can see of any wetland plants growing or any accumulation of silt that would indicate that there was any runoff occurring. If we needed to put a cul-de-sac in there, obviously that would be something we could do. But I don't know how serious an issue it is because, like I said, I've never seen any evidence of any running water there.
Right.
It looks like that whole area to me had at one time been very actively covered with water to have created the tremendous ravine that occurs right opposite this property. And when you look down in the ravine, you don't even see any water there.
Mhm.
So I don't know where, I guess the water is basically percolating into the ground and not running off the surface anywhere that I could see.
Yes, I
You know,
agree with you. So, yeah, this isn't a requirement or anything. It's just,
Mhm. Yeah,
I'm an engineer by profession, so it's when you're putting the drainage plan together for the site, which we have to approve at some point,
Mhm.
it's gonna be, keep an eye on that area.
Mhm.
It's,
All right.
in a
Okay.
sense, you could just say it's a heads up because as climate has been shifting, we are now getting 3 and 4 inch rain events or more. And it needs to be, dealt with and accommodated. So,
Mhm.
Okay.
Right. Okay. I'm getting to the end. I've got only one more, and that is, and I think the answer to this is no, but beyond perhaps a couple of historic perk tests or some other, mining for gold excavation or something. Have you done any geotech exploration here? Do you know where the rock is yet or anything like that?
Jay, that's an excellent question. Needless to say, when we start the drilling, the geothermal wells, the sooner we hit that bedrock, the higher the cost is going to be. So putting in some test holes from now at this point may not be a bad idea.
I think you also seriously need to consider putting at least one in the area where you're planning to put the house. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I saw the renderings that were presented with the package, and it's obviously still very conceptual what we've seen, but you're pushing the hill back pretty hard to create the flat spot for the house, and my house nestles into the cliff on the other side of that ridge, and I will tell you that the rock comes up quick. So especially if you had any, I don't know if you're planning on digging that pool in or if you're planning on any basements, I would get some holes in the ground sooner rather than later as you're working on your plans, because they may change.
Exactly. It's going to be a slab on grade.
Okay.
And because we anticipated that putting a basement in would, if you needed to blast and remove all that material, as you know, when you start blasting rock, the volume increases dramatically compared to what it was before you blasted it. It becomes like 3 times the volume.
Yep.
So the effort to be able to put in a basement just didn't make any sense. The original concept was to have a basement in the wing where the living room is and have a 2-car garage under there. But the other drawback to that is I don't want any steps at all. I want to be able to walk from the garage into the house, from the house, from one wing to the next, without encountering any steps. I intend this to be my last house. So I'm going to make it as walkable as possible. Second floor, for example, I don't intend to be going up there very often. That's going to be for my son's living requirements, and he will be using that space. So I will be basically inhabiting the first floor of the house. And so going even from the garage into the kitchen area, there will not be any steps. No one's going to traverse any steps at all. And as far as getting in and out of the house, if we need to, because of, like you said, because of the elevation, if we have to put in 1 or 2 entry steps to get into the house initially, that'll be about it. So we're not anticipating any really changes in elevation from one area of the house to the other. Hopefully.
yeah, as Jay is saying, I'm over on Mountain Farm and, one shovelful and you're down on the granite. So it pays to investigate, the doability of your septic field and your geothermal.
Yeah. And the geothermal is just money. They're expecting that geothermal expects to go with the 500 feet of rock anyway, the extra, whether it's 10 feet of earth or no feet of earth.
All right, good.
That
Good to
hardly
know.
matters. But that's all I have right now. I mean, I think, obviously this is all very preliminary and I look forward to seeing how it gets developed.
Right.
I just want to add, as far as the elevation of the house and the concern for hitting rock right away, we do have flexibility in the current design to raise the building up to 6 feet. And basically, as I mentioned, currently it's at 755 we do have the flexibility of adding, you know, the height to that. So this way, there will be more, if you look at toward the end of the road, it flattens out where it hits the garage. We do have room to go up quite a bit if we need to. It's just, you know, moving earth around. So the recommendation of doing test holes is definitely a good one. And I probably would start mostly on the northern part of the house just to see where it hits. And I would recommend maybe between 3 or 5 holes just to see where the rock is. And then that could help us determine if the height of the finished floor should be at a higher level. But we do have the flexibility though to
Okay.
do that.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, I've got the T-shirt from that mistake. Unfortunately, I wasn't responsible for it. So just
So, Portia or Rich, do you have
Yeah,
questions?
I have a couple.
Okay,
I don't see the ridge line shown on the map.
Are you referring to the double cross hatching, the 45-degree angle one?
that is, yeah,
That is the ridge line?
that's the ridgeline area.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, And-
So we added that. John pointed that out to be indicated on the site plan. We overlaid it. So as you can see on the northern portion of the site, there is a small area that is affecting the property and the building is not within that area.
okay, good. Geothermal, I'm assuming you're going vertical,
Yes,
okay, and you're gonna have 6,
6
Well-
wells. Yes,
okay, and you're saying that you don't need a heating system?
well, they're telling me that I'm going to be able to get 6 tons out of the system that I'm planning on putting in. And we may have to consider electrical backup when the weather would really get foul and cold. However, with the solar panels, we're also going to be installing 2 storage batteries that I hope will be able to be sufficient, so we won't have to draw anything off the grid. But of course, the grid will still be there because we'll be connected to the grid. Any excess energy is going to be put into the grid after it satisfies those 2 batteries. So I was on the phone, ironically, just today with one of the contractors we're considering, and we're getting into what the actual demand of the house will be. That's what it looks like it's going to be, approximately 6 tons.
Well, that sounds really good.
Well, you know, this technology has come a long way. The module that I'm
It
looking
definitely
at,
has.
it's called a Hydron module, and it will produce enough hot water to heat and cool the slab. It'll produce hot water for domestic use, domestic hot water. It'll produce hot air for the hot air ducts that are going to be utilized for the second floor heating. It'll also be used for pool heating. And in the summer, the air conditioning will recover the heat from the air conditioning process that ordinarily would be pumped out of the house. That heat is going to be converted into hot water. And so you would think in the summertime, you'd have even higher demand for hot water with the use, but the cost is going to be very low. Needless to say, the system still has to run on electricity. So it's not that it's like a perpetual motion machine, but considering the surplus, that's the supplement that it's going to be getting from the solar and the batteries backing it up, I'm anticipating having a very, very moderate, if not zero, electric bill. The house that I own presently, I don't have geothermal, but I do have solar cells, and we own 3 electric cars, 3 Tesla cars that we use all the time. And my bill every month is $5. So if the system works, I wish everybody else would be putting them in. California requires it in their code to have zero footprint as far as electrical demand and new construction, but that's not the case here. But I can tell you it will work in the Northeast just fine. So that's what I'm anticipating, having that type of a system. And we'll just, again, all of this is plans, just like what we're looking at. This is all abstract. Until we get this house built and operating, we're really not going to be able to prove the proof of concept as far as the zero emissions is certainly going to be the case, but whether the house is going to demand any draw from the grid is still yet to be seen.
Rich, do you have any other questions?
Let me look at my notes.
Portia, in the meanwhile?
I have a question only because we talked about this on the property. And Jack, you could correct me if this is not the direction we wish to go from this point on, but there was talk about, well, let me just back up a little. On the site, we show utility connection to the cul-de-sac as well as water. Because there's a hydrant on the cul-de-sac side.
Mm-hmm.
In speaking with the contractor, and only because of the steepness of the terrain down below on the southern end of the property, we noticed that there's an ability to connect to water on the upper.
Correct.
I think the road is called Lookout Road. And
Lookout
so this
Mountain
is just
Road.
a question. Yeah,
Mhm.
Lookout Road, which is on the northwestern portion of the property, and it just
Correct.
wraps around on the upper part.
Mm-hmm.
And we were toying with the question of the requirement to hook up to the cul-de-sac. Is that something we have to abide by? Because if we connect to the lookout side, it's closer to the building and there's less disturbance and
Right.
work as far as connecting to what's, on the other side of the property. If you look at the grading, is less,
Mm-hmm. Right.
probably
Right.
less rock.
Right.
It's a little bit easier to get to. We could use gravity and not
Mhm.
have to work with
Exactly.
electricity
Yeah,
to
I
pump
thought-
up the water. So
I thought
Right.
Mr. Perna said you were aiming at the Lookout Mountain
Right.
Road.
I think
next.
I was
Okay.
talking about that at the onset of my presentation. Maybe Jamie had not gotten on
Oh,
it.
okay.
So yeah, when
Yeah,
Jamie
yeah,
and I were there with the general contractor that's going to be taking on the project, we determined that it would be advantageous to get the water supply from Lookout Mountain Road, take advantage of the closer proximity of the house to Lookout Mountain Road, and also taking advantage of gravity, producing much more pressure than what we could expect if we were to tap into the main at Lookout
Right.
Stable Road cul-de-sac. There's an existing fire hydrant right on the opposite side of Lookout Mountain Road from the lot, and it would be easily accessible. And exactly how we will get to it, it may be done through a boring process rather than having to open up the road, but I'll leave that to the general contractor to determine.
And can I ask, the
Right.
arrow is kind of gone to an area which you've got those contour lines behind the house there. Are you anticipating retaining walls there, or is that a natural slope, or?
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful terrain, and to start putting in man-made materials or even materials that are from the site that starts it's fine the way it is.
Okay,
If we have to do some
Mhm.
climbing around here and there, certainly that's part of the allure of the property to have those natural slopes. We're not planning on changing any of that at all. There's beautiful outcrops coming out of the ground that just make it just like a fanciful place. I mean, so we're definitely not planning on making any changes to the general landscaping. We're not going to be putting anything except naturally occurring plants. Any of the ground that gets disturbed will be replanted using native plants that are already on the site or the same type. And we will be, if we need, and we will have to take down some trees, we will be planting additional trees to be able to absorb any water or any CO2 that we're emitting.
so, I mean, we were touching on the storm drainage, but obviously you appreciate that coming down from the Lookout Mountain is quite steep. So,
Right.
you're gonna get flow there, which you need to work on as it hits your house.
Well, like I said, I've been up there many, many times looking for exactly that. And I haven't seen any signs at all of any excessive runoff. You might anticipate it because you have the road there, and that's an impervious surface covering that road, but it doesn't appear to be sloping in the direction of my lot to the extent where I'm getting a lot of water running off the road. For the most part, it looks to me like the water is primarily running down the road rather than across the road, which is a
And,
good thing.
Yep. And Joe, do you have any questions you want to pose?
Sure. Thank you. Appreciate this information. This is helpful. We're starting our review. I guess the first question that I have here is we've discussed a number of topics. It sounds like things need to be modified, such as sliding the driveway over, where the proposed water connection is going to be. Do you plan on submitting a revised plan set before we start our review?
I would say to some level, yes, especially if we do test holes and find out that the rock is just within inches from the surface, then that might be just the only change, but otherwise, the general layout would remain. Would you agree, Jack?
Yes, absolutely. And I noticed John Favela is on the line, and he's quite capable of excavating those test holes with the equipment that he has and the knowledge that he has of that type of work.
So as the conversation's been progressing, I've been jotting some notes to myself, and I can go through a few things that have come to my mind. If you want to revise the plans and resubmit them, so that way saves time and effort and money on your end to just provide a revised set before I dive, before we have our staff dive into these plans thoroughly. So you mentioned earlier that the septic is a prior design. It looks like the drawing set was actually prepared by others. You mentioned you had discussions with the Department of Health. Was a prior Department of Health permit issued for this project?
No, there was no permit issued. When I spoke with the Department of Health before I bought the property, they assured me that since I had a copy of that sheet that was produced by Lankin Tully for Tuxedo Park Associates, they said that the specs did not change since then, and there was no reason to think that anything needed to be updated as far as the planning for putting in the septic.
Okay. Regarding the septic, I see that there's perk test information shown in the plans. There's deep pit tests shown. I don't see where the locations are, so I'd like to see where those tests were conducted. Also, the deep pit test will have to go deeper. I believe, I'm trying to recall off the top of my head, it's either 3 feet or 4 feet of separation is needed between the bottom of the trench and bedrock. So if the deep pit test only went 3 feet, we'll need to go a little further to make sure there's adequate separation distance there.
Mhm.
Also, if you're going to have any stormwater plans, we'll need to see that as well, if there's any kind of infiltration practice being proposed. I'd like to see the where you propose to connect the water service. Obviously, we want to make sure that that everything looks good on that side. The driveway revision I've noted. John, we'll need to verify the village code. I don't recall off the top of my head whether it's a 10% slope or a 20% slope that's permitted. An 11 degree slope comes out to be roughly a 19.5 percent slope. So we'll have to look to see if a variance would be needed for that. We'll need a stormwater control plan showing pre and post stormwater runoff conditions, and then any infrastructure practices that are going to be implemented. I mentioned the test holes. I'm seeing that there's tree lines shown that's basically surrounding the property, and the septic system is kind of in the middle there. There's a couple trees that were noted as being removed. Is there any other vegetation or clearing that's required to put in the septic in that location?
There may be,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
there may be native plants that are growing there and grasses. But I think the primary concern is to try to preserve those century-old trees. And we will certainly try our best to retain as many of those. But what type of vegetation would you be referring to you're concerned about?
Well, we don't want to have trees. We can't have trees in the area. Larger plants, the root systems will
Sure.
get into the leach field. So, but if you zoom out a little bit, John, if you show that, if you look, there's a tree line that's shown that basically starts at the cul-de-sac, and it follows the driveway and goes around the house. So the septic system, the leach field where it's shown is right within the wood area. That's why I asked the question about how densely vegetated that area is.
If I may,
Actually, I could, go ahead.
in the septic area, it is notated of what trees are going to be taken down. There's 3 trees, if you notice, that do have to be removed to install the septic. And they're on the plan there.
Have they been removed, or are they?
No, but they will need to be to install the septic. There's 3 of them. And to talk about the septic and the deep holes. So this was engineered once already by Lankin Tully. That work has already been done and stamped by Lankin Tully as far as deep holes, perk, and the depthness of the rock. So, and Jack actually inquired, and it as he said, the specs haven't changed. Everything is still acceptable as is.
Yeah, well, there's a difference between being stamped and being approved with a permit being issued. That's why I ask about the deep pit tests, and I'd like to see where the tests were conducted. Obviously, nothing has happened on the site, so the soil conditions haven't changed. We just need to verify that the information shown is appropriate for where the system is shown. I see the system.
And Joe, I'm just going to pause you for a second there. You know, John, do you want to, since we're talking the septic, do you want to talk about the process that's needed to go to the village board for a hardship waiver of installing septic versus connecting to the town's, to the village sewer system?
Yes, I didn't want to interrupt anybody, but Mr. Perna is well aware that you need a variance to, or you need to prove a hardship to the village board to request permission not to hook up to the village sewer. So I think before much more work gets done, I think Mr. Perna should attempt to get that variance first.
Yeah, I mean, we have to understand where's the septic, you know, where is it going? Does it work? And then, John, what's required in terms of showing the difficulties of connecting to the existing sewer system?
You know, that's really a decision made by the village board. I know in the past, part of it is financially based. You may also want to comment on the amount of site disturbance that might be necessary to put in a connection to the village sewer. But that's up to Mr. Perna and how he wants to present the hardship to the village board.
And he also, the village board also controls, I mean, there's an existing cut there, I understand, but the village board has to approve the access, property access, or is that already considered established, John?
There's no official road cut at this point.
Okay,
The village
all right.
board would have to make that decision. The village board is aware of the project. And I will bring it up to the village board again on having to make a decision regarding the road cut. Unless this board, has some strong objection to the current driveway configuration that may alter the location of the road cut.
I don't
I
think
know-
there
I
are
know
a
there's-
whole
I
lot
know
of
there's an issue.
choices here.
Yeah, no, I know there's an issue regarding the slope and that has to be sorted out pretty quickly. But I think once we figure out the slope of what Mr. Perna really wants to do, then we can present it to the trustees to see if they'll grant the road cut. And then separately, if they'll accept the hardship letter from Mr. Perna regarding not connecting to the village sewer.
Right, I mean, if the design is such that you're below the 10% slope, then that doesn't require going to the Board of Zoning Appeals to, get that variance. So that's something just to think about.
Yep.
Okay, sorry, Joe, I thought let's
Yep.
deal with that issue of it needs to go to the village board.
Absolutely.
So
And I appreciate that and not a problem at all. I've been looking over at my other monitor here. I've got the village's GIS up as well. So the nearest public sewer is at the end of Lookout Stable Road by the connection to Circuit Road. So it appears that there's a few residents just up the street that have grinder pumps that are connected in. And then the other houses appear to be on septic because they're not served by public sewer within the rest of Lookout Stable Road, at least according to
Right.
the GIS that I have. I'd like to see a limits of disturbance line on the plan. And also location for where the geothermal wells are going to be placed on the site would be helpful as well. So those are the first past comments that I have, and hopefully you're able to provide those on the revised plan, so that way we can help expedite our review.
John, you have questions?
No, obviously the applicant and his engineer have to figure out what they're doing with the driveway slope. If in fact the 11% equals 19.5%, there's a lot of work that has to happen there. But I don't have any more comments.
And Portia, anybody else?
No, the questions I had been answered because my biggest concern was the slope also of the driveway.
Kelly, I think we need to do we need to declare this a type 2 secra?
Yes, you do.
And is that as straightforward as we have a motion? Sorry for the ringing back here. A motion on that to recognize that this is a type 2 secret application.
Yes.
Okay. I'm moving. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor? Yes.
I
Oh,
All right, we're set on that. I believe, Mr. Perna, you've already received from John, we've gotten letters from the Reichfelds, who are your neighbors, sort of up by Lookout Mountain Road, and then Paula Tachi, who is directly next to you. I think he's passed those letters on to you. The Board of Architectural Review are the folks, as I say, who deal with architectural issues. We are simply the nuts and bolts and infrastructure side of the process. So,
Joanne, if I may, I've got one other
okay.
comment in the discussion that came up. When you're thinking about which side of the property to hook the water service up, have a conversation with the water department. as you may, or as you probably know, we have an aging water infrastructure. And just because the pipe is higher up on the hill than where your faucet is, doesn't necessarily mean you'll get better pressure. It has to do a lot with what the routing is headed back to the mains.
That's
Yeah,
a good point. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joanne.
I was going to say, I've had that conversation with John and, you know, so you want to share, the
Yeah.
thoughts on which way to go.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, Mr. Perna, you may have issues with pressure irregardless of where you make the connection. I'm thinking more regarding any sediment that you get in your water line, because either way, you're at the end of the line. It's not looped at the end of the road. And the line that goes up Lookout Mountain Road is relatively new in the last 12 years or so. And you may get less sediment by connecting on Lookout Mountain Road. However, I must warn you, you still may need some type of pump system to give yourself adequate pressure because of the height of the property relative to the tanks that are on Ridge Road that are very close to 800 feet, which is not too far from the elevation of your house.
True.
Yeah, and obviously Lookout Mountain, you know, could potentially get extended further down if some of those lots are developed. So that's another consideration there.
So when you say Lookout Mountain, is that also Lookout Road?
Yeah.
Or
No, unfortunately,
another road we're talking
your site plan is not correct. Lookout Road is actually Lookout Mountain Road up behind the
about? Oh,
house.
I understand. Okay.
No
got it.
trouble.
That's still something that's not even updated in Google yet. When you look at Google Maps, you don't even see Lookout Mountain Road.
Yeah, well, there's nobody on it, so
I guess that's
nobody's
the
been
reason.
motivated, I guess.
I guess not.
That's
But-
okay. If you
Yeah.
look on Google, you still see roads that have never been built and never will be. So it balances out.
To put a fine point on the water main discussion, they both connect into 4-inch cast iron pipe along Circuit Road, which is likely tuberculated and restricted. Lookout Stable Road, you actually have a 6-inch ductile iron main, which would be cement line, which would have reduced tuberculation, and it's got an installation date according to the records of 1983. So for the village standards, it's modern, but they're both unfortunately coming from older infrastructure.
So I think, I'm sorry, well, it's a little weird to just be a photo here, but now I know I have to talk to my tech person tomorrow. But I think we've covered all the preliminary topics. As Joe has suggested, if you want to make the changes we've discussed this evening, and then he can review that, start with that set of documents, or he can start on this set of documents, whichever you prefer.
You know,
I'm going to refer to Jack, but I believe we'll make some minor changes, so we'll have a new set to work from. I would like to boldly say.
Yeah, I think that will be the more efficient and cost-effective approach, if you can do that.
I agree.
Okay.
Yep.
So with that, I think we need to stay to approve a set of minutes. And I apologize. Is Desiree on tonight? Or?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Hi, Desiree. I'm sorry.
Hi.
And Desiree is our faithful and loyal recorder of what goes on in these meetings. And I didn't do that introduction at the beginning. So everybody else is free to drop off. Thank you all very much. We look forward to getting back together as you progress on becoming a new neighbor in Tuxedo Park.
thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
looking forward to it.
Super.
Thank you, everybody.
So we've got the minute of what, April
13th.
13th.
April 13th.
Does
Mhm.
anybody have any changes or comments on it?
do not.
If not, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of April 13th?
I approve the motion.
A second, please,
I'll second that.
and all in favor? I am in favor.
Aye.
All right. And hi, Meg. I didn't realize you were there, so. With that, may I have unless we've got any other business, may I have a motion to conclude the meeting?
So do we know when our next meeting is?
Well, that will depend on when these folks get materials to come back to us. Their next step is going to be the village board and the bar. So until, their plans, the stormwater and everything are ready to present, they're not really back in front of us. John, is that correct?
Yes, this is the only active application that requires planning board review at this time. I could receive something next week, but I don't foresee anything in the immediate future. I should bring to your attention, and I'm sure Kelly knows that I think around June 6th, we're kind of required to go back to in-person meetings. Kelly, I don't know if you can elaborate on that at this point, or.
June 14th, it was extended.
Okay.
Yeah.
June
Maybe
14th.
they'll extend again. I mean,
Okay.
this has many virtues. Why
You
they're
know, it
pushing
does. I have seen so many more people at public meetings because they don't have to leave their couch.
Right.
So I'd like
Yeah.
to think that the legislature would take that into account.
Yeah,
but
well, someone needs to thump up and down on that. I certainly have said.
Well, the village has started, I was at the last village board meeting. The village has started and the town has started. There is a new provision so that by local law, we can have hybrid meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
can-
just still requires that a majority of the board be present at Village Hall. Basically, that the
Right.
statute that the legislature adopted doesn't really do what everyone thinks that they meant for it to do. And it really only allows board members to attend under extraordinary circumstances. And those extraordinary circumstances are not thoroughly defined, but basically are pretty extraordinary circumstances. But it does allow for hybrid meetings, like you're saying, for the public, for your consultants, for applicants to attend that way. It's just not as easy for board members.
Yeah, well, I pointed out that, some of our board members are not going to be physically present in the park. So hopefully people are going to come to grips with that one.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was a indirect answer of, we don't have anything scheduled, certainly coming up in the next 2 weeks.
Correct.
So anyway, okay, and we moved to close. So with that, I think we're all set, and thank you very much, everybody. And have a great Memorial Day.
Yeah, come to the picnic in town.
Absolutely.
Well, have a
And then
good
there's-
weekend. It was good to see you all.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Likewise.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.